recording. So this TST meeting, what is today, March 7th? Guess I lost track of time. We have one official item that we need to take care of, which is the Expo's collaboration proposal. We postponed it a little bit because we wanted to hear from the Cord folks, and the short version of the response is they already participated in the Barcelona showcase demo, and so it's completely appropriate that they be a collaborator. Going forward, it's going to be important to identify the next thing that they work on, but it does. They're working on taking advantage of the network cookies that the Cord configuration supports, and so that is a viable part of the demonstration. Any other information or comments on it?
No, that's a great idea, Larry. Maybe I'm thinking that what the demo that they did was just very simple, basic public safety thing, and there are a lot of advanced next generation public safety shows that we can do with them. And having said that, we need to make sure that their stuff did not work at the conference, at the MWC. Somehow it worked here, but they couldn't make it work there. So we need to get it stabilized and make it part of the platform, default platform for Cord. So there is some discussions around what should be open interface, what should be open source, such that people can replicate that public safety thing going forward.
But right, so yeah, I did hear that it didn't quite work for them. But the threshold of having something of value that they're bringing, and assuming, and this of course is an assumption for every collaborator, that they continue to participate, it seems to me a perfectly reasonable collaboration proposal. Anyone have concerns about it?
No, I think they should go. In the meantime, Oz is asking, can you forward the meeting invite to him?
Could someone else do that? I'll go fumble to try to find it.
You should subscribe to.
I can add him.
Yeah, I think he should do it actually.
Who, Larry?
No, Oz.
Oh, himself.
Yeah.
He didn't know about it.
It's like a subscription to this meeting.
Send him the link to subscribe, however it is.
Yeah,
there's a Cord calendar.
Yeah. Well, there is that. I'll add him to the invite too, though.
I think so. To answer your question, Larry, yeah, absolutely. Let's make him official collaborator, and we have a list of basically whiteboard discussion that we did with them. That it should be open source if possible, such that they can open for some basic functions that public safety can be replicated, and if they want to have the advanced versions in binary form and all of that, I think it'd be all good.
So in our typical by acclamation voting method, any TST members have any concerns or problems with going ahead and accepting it? I'll take that as a positive endorsement of bringing Expos on as a collaborator.
How many TST members are here versus missing, Larry?
I didn't quite hear that, Bill.
Just curious, how many, do we have a quorum of TST members?
I see Surav, Andy, myself, and I'm not sure who else is in the room.
You don't know what I mean? Mark.
Okay, so we have 4. So yeah, okay. So I just want to make sure we've got.
Yeah. Good point.
Okay, so I'll move ahead and let them know they're official.
Sure. I said in the email that I wanted to talk about, just begin the discussion about the next release so that we can just start that thought process. But before I get to it, I want to come back to something on dangerous addition. And what I'm going to put up on my screen, and I don't know that it's critical that whether you can see it or not. Let's see. Is the dangerous addition release schedule. I'd like to propose that we do something we should have done from the very beginning, but we kind of got lazy, is change the final target release date and from May 1st to May 8th. And the reason for that is a couple of things. And then make this final sprint a 3-week sprint. So that's my proposal. First of all, we didn't really close out Mysterious Decision until middle of January, so that kind of put us behind the 8 ball to start out with. Adding ONS only complicates things, so effectively we're going to lose a week because of that. That's something that you could argue we could have planned for, and of course we sort of did. But going forward, there was objection to the January 1st, if we go January, every 4 months, and we sort of say the first of the month. January 1st is just going to continue to be problematic for the same reason it was this year. And so I don't think there's an argument we should stay with the first of the month just so that we're consistent. Let's just move it a week into the month. So let me just throw that out as a proposal and see if there are any comments on it. Yuan, what are your thoughts?
I think I'm fine with it. I mean, if this is the cadence we want to move forward with, it's better to change now than later.
Is everyone else okay with that adjustment?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Okay, thanks. I don't know whether we officially need a vote on that, but I don't hear any objections to it, so I'm going to just take it as an adjustment and move on. All right, on
sorry.
Go ahead.
Sort of.
Quick question.
If it's Jan,
Go ahead.
if it's January you're worried about, I mean, might make even more sense to move it to mid-month, because most people don't come back from the winter holidays to 3rd or 4th of January.
Well, I certainly don't have any problem getting ourselves a little more time on Dangerous Edition because we swallowed a big chunk of work, and it's going to be challenging.
Jan 15th, May 15th, September 15th makes sense. Mid-month.
That's good. So we just bought ourselves another week, and I don't know where we put it. It doesn't really matter.
Probably a sprint, or next, for instance, there's ONS. So what we could do is we could burn the week of ONS.
Just take it out of sprints, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll consider the week of ONS. Well, I guess the way to say that is that this is really then a 4-week sprint. And I'm kind of doing this on the fly here, so come back and check my numbers. I don't know if it's the 15th. I'm not looking at a calendar, but that's the idea. And so this feature freeze, we should come back and visit that just to be sure that we're getting that right. And maybe the feature freeze is not the beginning of the sprint, but a week into it or something like that. But we'll need to just make sure we get that right.
The feature freeze will be at the end of the sprint.
Okay. Oh, feature freeze in the sprint, that's good.
Yep, and then the last sprint will be for bug fixes only, so no new features.
Right, thank you. Good.
someone send me the link to the features for the dangerous edition? I just want to make sure that it does include the light EPC, etc. on Cord perspective.
You cut out a little bit there. Could you say that again?
Yeah, I want to sort of make sure the features does include some of the discussion we had when you were here regarding Cord Edge or mobile Cord Edge, where includes like EPC light or separation of the OpenStack from the edge services. Being able to spin off services at the edge of the network without having to install OpenStack, etc., or head node doesn't have to be the full head node at the edge.
So I think this is very consistent with my understanding of what you're talking about is very consistent with light and write cord. And light and write cord is on the to-do list for Dangerous Edition, but we're pretty well accepting that it's not going to get done. So it's going to slide back to shared delusion. A lot of what's going on now is foundational for it, so hopefully it won't be quite the heavy lift as it would have otherwise been. But whatever is on
slide. It was essentially an inventory of where we're at in Dangerous Edition.
So actually yesterday, that doesn't matter. I don't think that the OpenStack free edge is going to be part of Dangerous Edition. It's going to be one of the very high priorities in the following release.
Larry, what do the colors mean on the slider?
Those are UN's colors, so I think they're.
Green means we're on track. Red means it's likely not happening, and then orange means there have been some issues. Right? Because for eCord, I think pseudo-wire didn't really happen because of some defects. So I think that would be deferred until the next release. And then for monitoring probes, it doesn't feel like we're really instrumenting. I think there's changes to monitor the service, but from an enabling it at each of the services, I don't think that the teams are really doing that work. And then better items that we really haven't had a chance to get to, right?
Yeah, red's going to slip, and orange is at risk, but because of particular issues we're trying to work through.
And how is expand set of access devices green? What access devices?
Some of the Volta work.
Sorry?
That was more with the Volta work that's being done. So if you look at the release planning slides, it was to enable some of the Volta devices to the.
We're basically saying we're expanding the set of access devices beyond the Celestica device. Is that really why we're saying that it's green here?
Yeah.
Okay.
And how many of these access devices or I guess the drivers in Volta for these access devices are actually going to be part of the release, so to speak, or is there proprietary stuff involved in there? Does anyone know?
The drivers themselves, that's a good question. I mean, from Aradis's point of view, the Broadcom effort that we're doing will be open, will be made available to the community. I can't answer for the other drivers. But the Broadcom Maple driver will submit for the community to consider to be, just include that into, as if you will, the default Maple. It's up to the community, right, to approve that. But that's our thought initially.
Okay, so when does that come in?
We're currently working on that now, as we are. There's several vendors motivated through the AT&T proof of concept. So I would say it's in development now, and I think Emmett or another member of our team can speak to when that could be available. But again, we are in the process of testing with AT&T, currently going into phase 2. I would assume that after we stabilize the driver, we can make that available to the community again for review and consideration.
So the target is still Dangerous Edition?
Mid-May.
Yes.
Again, I don't see why not, but it wouldn't be quote unquote fully functional based on where we will be at in our development efforts with to deliver on AT&T phase 2 and phase 3 requirements. We'll be just getting out of, if you will, our phase 2 test efforts with AT&T. So I can't speak to timeline right now as well.
Another way to look at it is independent of AT&T's requirements.
Yeah.
Do you have a checkpoint that can be included in the release for the reference implementation? And that sounds like you're saying yes.
Yes, and I think that Sasir or myself should be able to take that as an action point for the team to get back to on the availability of the driver. Okay, thank you.
I have a comment. I know the slides that I saw, it didn't have XOS in there and all of that, and they were talking about manually providing the access and all of that. And I was a bit concerned because I know, Larry, when we talked about how policy engine can make sure the high availability and policies can be enforced, and we need something like, distributed XOS and all of that. Is that something that we should discuss now, Larry? We know from what is going on with, AT&T's thing, and I just want to make sure that high availability and stuff, and also inner working with the policy can be, managed by the local service composition layer. And it doesn't seem that those diagrams that I saw did not have XOS in it.
I'm not sure what diagrams you're referring to, but I think the general answer to your comment is if it's not already on the development train, it's not going to happen for Dangerous Edition. And a lot of that work is the various refactorings that everyone knows about that will support the policy engines. So example policies might be something that would be good to put on the scope of work for the next release. And we're still kind of in the exploratory stage. So there's absolutely no way we're going to get something like that included in this release, which kind of is a good transition to what I wanted to do next, which was to just have exactly this kind of discussion about what we might be doing. So if you go to Cord, where are they? Sprints and releases. We've been working in Dangerous Edition. I just created another folder for Shared Delusion, and I just copied over the planning document just to get us started, and shifted everything one to the left, and that's as far as I got. Actually, a little bit further, I started to jot down some things that I know to be on people's minds. So let's just spend a few minutes with this slide. And of course, everyone else can come in and start thinking about what follows up for MCord. Tom, the notion of the lightweight edge is certainly relevant there, both Cord and so on. But coming back to the general roadmap, just a reminder to everyone, what we're trying to do right now is, in my view, the critical thing is to stabilize the interfaces. as everyone knows, the refactoring XOS is primarily about isolating the core, building an interface around it so that both synchronizers and GUIs and so on have a non-Django interface to write to. So let's presume that we get that work done. It's a requirement that we get that done for Dangerous Edition. Looking forward, if you ask me, and again, this is just a straw man, to try to characterize what I think happens next, is in my view, there's been a lot of services built. They have been built to different versions of XOS that have kind of evolved, and the best practice continues to shift. What I hope Stabilized Interfaces gets us to is a stable best practice for building services. And so from my point of view, one of the high priority theme items would be to normalize and expand that service portfolio. And I called out as an example of a bit of work that needs to be done is just a service audit and make sure that we're applying best practices and adhering to the new APIs throughout the entire, MCord, RCord, ACord, and so on. I happen to know that in the discussions in the background that have gone on, we just need to revisit the management network and make sure that we have the right model for it. I'm not going to drill down on all of these, but I'll just put it out there. There has always been discussion. Everyone understands that we need a more streamlined development environments. We have the front-end environment, and there are some ideas around making it more general purpose than only working for UI and data modeling work, but being able to take the front-end configuration and incrementally add your back end without having to add all the back ends. Some of these are somewhat generic. Making services more resilient has been there and will probably continue to be there for a while. Catching up with the latest fabric is sort of a generic thing there as well. Now, what I did not do is try to move anything from the Dangerous Edition column over. So clearly, support for Light and Write Cord, I say clearly, I presume that is going to continue to be a high priority. The work that didn't get done in Dangerous Edition will move forward into Shared Delusion. All right, with that bit of background, let me just open the floor for general comments on high order things or specifics, anything that people want to just throw out there for what we ought to be doing in Shared Delusion or beyond Dangerous Edition.
Let me tell you, Larry, what my concern is. And I know, there are a lot of work going on with Radisys and AT&T internally, et cetera. And we want to make sure that they deploy Cord. We want to make sure they don't derail the track on different tracks. And then, we become another locked solution again because it is not based on fully Cord standard and all of that. So whatever that work that happens with, going forward with these new Access and Broadcom and, Tomahawk, et cetera, we want to make sure that is aligned with what Cord, is going to take it forward. Otherwise, if, for example, they 100% eliminate XOS and say this is how we're going to do it, et cetera, it is not Cord anymore. And therefore, then we run into a locked solution that longer term is not to AT&T's benefit. So
I agree.
So I want to make sure, Radisys and ON Lab is always aligned in whatever solution that we are calling it Cord-based or open solution-based, and we don't end up another locked vendor solution.
We're aligned. This is Donna.
All right. No, that's good, Donna. So maybe Cecile can share the slides with Larry of at least, the one I saw that didn't have XOS, and then maybe Larry, you can,
Well, so let me make one high-level comment. The Cord board ask for a definition of what is Cord compliant. Mm-hmm. And I've drafted that. I don't know that some of you have seen it. I haven't just broadly circulated it. I wanted to get some feedback from the board on it.
It would be nice to see it, Larry. I mean, just.
All right, I'll take as an action at the end of the meeting here because I don't want to fumble through that right now, but I will send out a link to it. In any case, that was something the board asked for, and so it's something that's in the works. So, go ahead.
Larry, is eComp or ONAP?
ONAP.
In any way on our roadmap?
Yes. Mark is asking if the ONAP interfaces. I think we have some slides on zero touch that I just shared with Larry today, and Cloudify is proposing some, plugins into ONAP. So maybe we should. And I'm not. Larry, you probably answer that better.
Yeah, well, I don't. I haven't looked at your slides yet. So maybe is there someone else I should be passing the presenter mode to? I thought.
No, I'm not sure, Larry. If I'm ready to this.
I was just asking the question for shared illusion. Is ONAP in any way part of the future work?
It hasn't been discussed, so I don't know.
So we're having a meeting this week with AT&T around that. So after that meeting,
Then we'll know.
Is that eComp specific or ONAP, right? Because of the merging of.
I thought they were the same, but.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
both eComp and OpenO are going away. Is becoming ONAP.
Yeah. So can we say call that out as integration or integrate with ONAP, and then we can double click on that as we
What's the acronym?
Open
networking automation platform.
Yeah. So this is there's a meeting that some of us are going to at AT&T in a couple of days that we're going to try to sort this out. So yeah, thanks for raising the point. Of all the things as I was just jotting this down this morning that I didn't get down, this is one that I should have.
probably an exploratory.
Well, yeah. So that's it's a great point that it's probably still at the exploratory, but how things get. That's not prioritized just yet. It's on the list.
Another thing that should be on the list. It's about time that Cord is brought onto the platform. I mean, it only uses parts of Cord, Cord, all the demos. It uses XOS. It kind of uses VTN, but hacks into it, and it doesn't use the fabric at all. So that, I mean, we're doing good with eCord, but I don't think Cord has gone all the way, bringing it onto the same platform.
Yeah, so that's a great point, and I'm actually a little confused that I don't see. So technically, this is the platform roadmap, and so there's a bullet item. Now I'm going back to Dangerous Edition. There's a bullet item for platform support for eCord. There wasn't a bullet item for platform support for mCord because the mCord team said they didn't need any platform changes. May or may not be a true statement.
Well,
may or may not be a true statement. But the intent.
They noted a dependency to refactor with the XOS refactoring effort. And so that was a tie-in back to the platform.
Yeah, so that was certainly my understanding that, and now I've gone, this is the roadmap for mCord, merge with XOS redesign is planned for this release. Now,
I'm saying that XOS itself is not enough to be part of Cord.
All right, very good. So I think from my point of view, we're going to sort of just barely have mCord and eCord, maybe in name only integrated. And from my point of view, I think that is, in fact, that's an aspect of what I intended by this. I think there's a whole lot of parallel services being developed. We could spend an entire release making sure that they all really ran on the same platform, integrated, best practices, right interfaces, and so on.
Okay, so audit services implies services working with XOS or refactored XOS, but it should also imply that in the data plane, it works with what is the standard Cord platform, right? They can't go off and do, their own data plane.
Yep, I agree.
Outside of the VM or container, right? So it has to work in the management orchestration plane, but also in the data plane.
Yep. Yep. I agree.
I'll be honest, the audit services and apply best practices, if anybody just kind of joins this call, it's not as easy to understand the intent here. So if there's a different way to define what we're calling out as a feature.
Well, yeah, and again, we're not. This is a draft, right? I'll accept different words than audit. To me, audit basically means you take the time to walk through all the services and bring all of the platform parties into the room with you, right? And you say, are you doing this the way that was supposed to and intended? And are you taking advantage of what's there? Or do we need to add something? So, yeah, I'm open for other ways of saying that.
Okay. And is that really a feature that we're exposing, or is that a governance that we're imposing?
Oh, I consider it a feature in the sense that it would make the next release better.
It's an implementation also that we are imposing.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
But you're right. You're right that it does have a governance/compliance aspect to it.
But I guess what we're saying though is we're asking Cord and Cord to integrate with the XOS or the Cord platform, right?
Yeah, with all aspects, right? So Saurav's point is very well taken. It's all aspects of the platform. And while there's been some integration with XOS because that's changing, yada yada yada. We want to make sure that's has applied the best practices, and then that it's integrated properly with VTN. And if you can't, then that's when we need to know that VTN needs to be extended in some way, and the same for the fabric.
Okay, so from a platform standpoint, we're looking at Cord and Cord specifically to see what platform requirements they have, plus making sure that they have it on their roadmap to integrate as part of shared solutions. Right?
Right. So let me make that bullet, which is we're trying to extract platform requirements, but it's simultaneously then I don't know how to say this.
Yes, but simultaneously, I think extract platform requirements has too often been understood as, oh, I got to work with XOS, and that's not enough. I stress again that it has to work with the data plane environment as well.
Yeah. I was trying to capture that technically this is a platform slide, and what we need to do is then go back to each one of the Cord, Cord, and so on, and I don't know, offer advice, recommendations. Let me call them recommendations. I don't know if that quite captures it or not. Well, this is about applying best practices. I'm just going to stop because I'm not making progress on that.
Larry, another point, we've talked on numerous occasions about making Cord a full-blown entity in the Cord platform. I understand there's staffing changes going on now and so on, but is this the right time to do that, or is there nothing to do, or?
I would say there's still work to do. It technically right now is an optional service that you can bring into Mysterious Decision. So you can choose to bring it in or not. It's not automatically brought in. I don't know what to say exactly here. Whether it's promote.
On board or not?
Yeah, it should be kind of a core service, right? It's something any other Cord or Cord can just start using.
And that is especially for Cord. Cord is a critical mass here because that's how we can make dynamic optimization practices for for all the resources.
Yeah. So
expand will not work.
it's absolutely a. So we get into this issue of exactly what is the platform definition. It's a tricky discussion because you could say, is OpenStack part of the platform? Yes or no? Well, when everything's a service, then everything is not part of the platform by one definition, but clearly there are subsystems that really need to be there for a complete platform, and so you can include them, and Cord is a great example. But I completely agree that we need to start treating Cord as a first-class part of the platform. So another aspect of this, I'll just call it out, it's this. What we're saying here is completely consistent, in my view, with supporting light and write Cord, in the sense that light and write Cord said, hey, OpenStack was a configurable piece. It was not hardwired in, so I ought to be able to build a version of Cord that doesn't include OpenStack, for example. So being able to take stuff out as well as put them in. That's, light and write is kind of in that space. So that supports a minimal platform. So David isn't, I assume David Bainbridge isn't on the line, but he had a long list of robustness issues. They're all perfectly valid. I don't know how we schedule as much work as we have. Being able to add components, take components down, a whole manner of things that need to happen for services to be resilient. That's a long work list as well.
Larry, your previous slide had this color coding, red, green, and orange. I suppose we're carrying everything over.
Well, no, not so. Yeah, so good point. So,
not now.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, we
don't know. We should make these lists, I think, because we're not really honoring them.
Well, as I started this list, it was sort of, what's the stuff that's come up since we did Dangerous Edition? What do we understand better than we did? So if I were to start to pull stuff forward, well, I mean, clearly we want to continue to work on QA coverage. That will be ongoing. Undoubtedly, we're going to want to continue to expand the access devices. And
start pulling those over, create a full list, and then we can start prioritizing it, right? And then figure out where the cut line is for the shared delusion, and then which one moves to the next one. Because if we look at the list, I think it's going to be more than shared delusion.
I didn't quite hear the very tail end of that, but yeah. So as we get serious about release planning, we absolutely should do that.
Okay, so was this more polling the teams to see what new features folks are interested in, and then we'll do release planning?
Yeah. This is not release planning. This is very preliminary. Start the discussion about release planning. But it's good to hear where people's concerns are. And let me just call one out here. Streamline the development environment. There's been a lot of work gone into Cord in a box, for example. It's getting better, but it wasn't designed to be a trivial, get it up and running development environment. It's more for end-to-end testing. People use it for development, and if you work with it right, you can find tight development loops in the middle of it. But for someone trying to get started or do some limited amount of work, it's pretty cumbersome. Well, there's a variant of that that just brings up a front end, but that isn't quite sufficient for other people. And I could go on, but the point is having a range of development environments for different kinds of developers is an important thing. Is it more important than some of these others? I don't know. That's a judgment call.
So Larry, speaking of the concerns, I know Spirent is trying to put together a Cord environment in their own lab for scale and test, and maybe XTR may get onboarded soon. So do we have to, I guess, is this relevant to some of these releases, or by end of Dangerous Edition, do we want them to have a certification lab?
So I don't know if Luca is on, but he's been bringing up a bunch of pods at remote sites. And so that definitely is part of the work that's going on. He's delivering stories every sprint. I don't know. Is Luca on?
No.
Not
Okay.
yet.
Yeah. So if there are things like that, in fact, again, I'm looking at Dangerous Edition, and we'll need to upgrade this for somewhere in here. Where was it? Oh, we just knew that we had a bunch of demos and deployments, and that is part of scheduling work. I don't find anything that's particularly relevant, so never mind. But understanding where all the deployments are, both trial deployments and clusters we can use for development and testing, is part of the work that needs to be done. All right, so let's continue this discussion. I'm not quite sure whether we
I think Oz might be on the call also. I think you were asking.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so we originally had a question, wanted your feedback on expos, but we took care of that. So
Okay.
I don't know if you have any thoughts on this discussion, especially with respect to MCord.
Not at this moment, but I'm on board with promoting ACORD as a platform, and for MCord specifically, that is becoming increasingly more relevant. All operators really want analytics to be part of the cellular network, so that becomes even more important for MCord.
I'm going to just call that out. I think it's a little bit different, kind of at the high level there. Well, in fact, let me go ahead while we're at it. I'm going to put support for light and write cord. I'm going to go ahead and pull it over, and I'm just going to footnote it with how is it you call the edge that you were, Tom? This is what you
Cord
brought.
Edge, or yeah, I was mentioning Cord Edge or dynamic service onboarding at Edge. And this might be relating to also what Oz might have sent you yesterday and one slide on.
Right. So what is your two-word label for it?
What I used was access side compute node and then pod side compute node. So there are two types of compute nodes in this structure for MCord.
All right. So the RCord variant of this is oh man, I don't know. It's an access side pod or something like that.
Yes.
So for everyone else's sake, we've only had a little quick exchange, but it looks like both R Cord and M Cord have the same requirement, which is that it's possible to build a very stripped down pod, which we could call light and right, that's dominated by the access blades of one kind or another, with just sufficient compute for the access, and the rest, the quote unquote rest of the pod running VNFs is upstream somewhere.
I concur. I understand it. I've heard it a time or two.
So it's a configuration. It's a configuration that should be possible, and being able to support that configuration is clearly going to be an important thing. So I'm going to go ahead and take that out since I kind of got it up above now.
I don't see that. Maybe I don't see the similarities of the light and right cord and what's being asked for on the access side pod requirements, because I saw us moving toward the light and right as being a container-based control and data plane, moving away from and decoupling OpenStack. And then I see the access side, essentially a pod, if you will, a COTS, a rack, to have either, mobility or broadband blades, populating a rack and having that upstream management, like that ONAP, if you will, upstream centralized architecture, integrating with that access side pod. So I don't see the light and right cord and the access side pod being, if you will, in the same problem domain.
Well, so the implementation may turn out to be different. That's entirely possible. But from in the same domain, I would argue that it is, because what light and right lets you do is strip a pod down to the absolute minimal hardware you would need for a particular deployment, and that deployment might mean that the rack or partial rack is dominated by access blades with just the absolute minimal compute blades to support the access. Now, there's a question as to, is there any management at all that goes on the edge and on this access side? And
right.
that's debatable, but the requirement for light and right is essentially that it is as absolute minimal as possible, and it's a no hit to the data plane if it fails and needs to restart. So there's a set of requirements there, and if architecturally, if we can figure out that these are variants of the same theme, then that's a very good thing to try to pursue. If it turns out they're different, then I want to understand why.
And Donna, to add on to what you were referring to, think of this access side pod not only a mobile edge pod, but also potentially a compute node that is internal to a given base station.
Okay.
So we are taking the mobile edge to the extreme. So imagine a base station hardware that has the capability to host a compute node internally.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
So let me a picture that we understand that we can build out these really large pods, right? But we also can build, and again, this is entirely for the R Cord space, but think of it, the OLTs is replaced with something on the RAN side. Then there is a partial rack, so maybe there's top of rack switch to connect you back upstream. It's got absolute minimal compute. We just as well run containers for whatever we need to do there. And then it's all these, this might be 90% of this thing is filled with access blades. And then,
right.
And then you can start thinking about, well, the rest of it's upstream from you somewhere. And whether upstream is, and you might do this in the R Cord case for regulatory concerns, but this now might be the very, very edge. So I think this is clearly a topic to explore, but I think there's some similarity I'd like to pursue, and I'm really glad to hear that you guys are starting to think about it, because then we can put our heads together and see if we can leverage the same configurability.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for showing that.
Okay, so again, this is a start. I owe everyone a link to the Cord compliant defined Cord page, and I'm happy to take comments. And again, this is something we're sharing with the Cord board. Anything else?
Can you include this link also here, the slide that you're showing right now?
Yeah, this is in.
Oh, so forwarded it to you.
Yeah, it's in Cord sprints and releases, and this is the shared delusion folder.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.